Good evening. I would like to welcome everyone to the Henry County Zoning Advisory Board meeting for Thursday, March the 28th, 2019. This meeting is being televised on Charter Spectrum Channel 180, also AT&T Uverse Channel 99. It will air daily at 1 p.m. with an additional airing on Thursdays at 7 p.m. A video is also available on demand on the county website. Please turn off all your cell phones and your laptop computers or set them to the vibrate mode. Anyone wishing to speak tonight, please fill out a public hearing speaker card. A total of 10 minutes will be allowed for anyone in favor of a case and 10 minutes allowed for anyone in opposition of a case. For example, if 10 people wish to speak, you'll have to share the 10-minute slot. When you are speaking, please face the board and address us directly, not the audience. If you turn to speak to the audience, the board will assume you are finished and call the next speaker. I'll ask now Mr. Barr if you would please lead us in the invocation and pledge.
Let us pray. Lord, I want to thank you for this time we have together. I want to thank you for the country, for the freedom. I want to thank you for all the people that have sacrificed to keep us free. We ask for patience and guidance to have a good meeting today. We ask this in your name. Amen. Amen. Pledge allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This meeting is now called to order. Do I have a motion, please, to approve the agenda?
I make a motion that we approve the agenda.
And a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion.
Previous meeting. And a second?
A second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Motion is approved. Do we have any comments from staff to start the meeting?
Madam Chair, no comments at this time from staff.
All righty then. We'll now move to the agenda items. We'll let staff call the first case.
Case number CU-19-02, GG of McDonough LLC of Williamson, Georgia, requests a conditional use for property located on the west side of Business Center Drive and Land Lot 2 of the 12th District. The property consists of 10.02 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a fitness center expansion. This property is located in Commission District 4 and will be presented by Ms. Jewel Richardson, Planner 1.
Good evening, Board and Chair. Good evening, Chair and Board members. The conditional use request is for a sports recreation facility located at Business Center Drive. The property is currently operating as a legal non-conforming gym. Due to the proposed expansion of the existing gym, the applicant will need to come in for a conditional use for the additional property, and given that the conditional use will run with the existing gym right now. If the conditional use is approved, the request will satisfy the ULDC Unified Land Development Code requirement for amusement, sports, and recreational facilities. I'll be happy, sorry, I apologize. Having said that, staff recommends approval, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for staff? Right? No? We'll ask the applicant to please come forward. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Jamie Hughes. My address is 231 Wentworth Way, Griffin, Georgia. I represent the owner.
Okay. Anything you'd like to add to staff comments?
This is a business that's been there for a long time, and he's just trying to expand his facilities for his clientele.
Any questions? Mr. Risher.
Yes, sir. I'd just like to ask, as part of your expansion for this outdoor facility, are you adding additional parking spaces? And if so, how many?
We're adding a line of parking places across the one side. I don't have the number of them right here with me, but we're adding additional parking, and it's the same users. You know, we can use the same parking that we got anyway, but we're adding some parking forward.
Okay, but staff believes that they'll meet all the parking requirements for off-street parking, for this expansion?
Permit is issued for construction.
Yes.
Thank you.
Do you know how many parking spaces are currently available in that lot?
No, ma'am, not.
Yeah. But that parking lot is primarily used by your
By the
Gold's
gym,
Gym members?
yes, ma'am.
Yeah. And that's going to be an outdoor pool?
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions? No? All right, you may be seated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we will allow 10 minutes for anyone who would like to speak in favor of this case. Anyone who would like to speak in favor of this case, please come forward. None? Anyone who would like to speak in opposition to this case? 10 minutes for anyone who would like to speak in opposition. And there are none? Any further questions for applicant or staff? No? It's quick. We'll call the case then. Thank you.
Case number CU-19-02, GG of McDonough LLC of Williamson, Georgia, requests a conditional use for property located on the west side of Business Center Drive in Land Lot 2 of the 12th District. The property consists of 10.02 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a fitness center expansion. This property is located in Commission District 4 and was presented by Ms. Jewel Richardson, Planner 1.
Do I have a motion?
On case CU-19-02, I propose that we adopt staff recommendation and approve the applicant's request.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. We'll call the next case.
Case number CU-19-03, the Reservoir Group of Watkinsville, Georgia, requests a conditional use for property located at 719 Crumbly Road in land lots 8 and 25 of the 11th District. The property consists of 86.5 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a conservation subdivision. This property is located in Commission District 2 and will be presented by Ms. Jewel Richardson, Planner 1.
Good evening, Chair and Board again. This conditional use is a request for a conservation subdivision located at 719 Crumbly Road. The property has recently been rezoned from RA to R2S for a subdivision of 100 lots. Conservation subdivisions are allowed as a conditional use in any single-family residential zoning districts or mixed use to be developed with the same number of lots that would be allowed under a conventional subdivision design. The lots are allowed by right as small as 10,890 square feet with a minimum of 40% of area that is permanent open space. The applicant is proposing a total of 61.7% of open space. Having said that, staff recommends approval of the applicant's request and will be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for staff?
I have a question. What is the net acreage that will be used to build on?
Uh, 85. The total amount of acreage on the net, I'm sorry, 1 second.
when you deduct the green space, open space, what's the remaining acreage?
Roughly 30 acres.
30 acres.
Any other questions for staff? Mr. Risher?
Yes, is there county sanitary sewer service available or next to this property to service these smaller lots?
Yes, they will have sewer.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for staff? None? We'll ask the applicant to please come forward. State your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening, members of the board. Drew Camp, the Reservoir Group, 1031 Park Drive, Watkinsville, Georgia. As Ms. Richardson just pointed out, our project consists of 86.5 acres and is located in the northeast corner of Crumley and Selfridge Road intersection. The property is currently zoned R2S, and I've come before you this evening requesting a conditional use for a conservation subdivision for a project consisting of 100 homes. We are pleased and pretty happy with to be exceeding the conservation subdivision ordinance open space requirements of 40%. I think we're actually a little above 50%. I think, as Mr. Gibbs just pointed out, we're 86.5 acres total, and we're using about 33 to 34 acres of that for actual development. The rest is captured by open space. We believe the physical attributes of this property lend itself to a unique conservation concept that would be consistent with the newly adopted 2040 comp plan. And by way of these 10,890 square foot lots that we've proposed, we believe there's an opportunity to incorporate an age-targeted pod in the project and would do so off of the Selfridge Road entrance. We believe that a quality product without the maintenance due to its size will lend itself to providing an opportunity in the marketplace to support Henry County's aging community. The layout has two entrances. Oops, there we go. One here off of Selfridge and one here off of Crumley. You can tell by, we've actually made some tweaks to this since this report was turned in staff. We've pushed these lots back into the interior of the community, both off of the Selfridge access point and the Crumley access point. We, from the initial rezoning request to the R2S, we have also moved the entrance westward away from the property owner here at the corner, the Dawes family, I believe, in an attempt to help take the A-cell and D-cell lane out of any potential conflict with their driveway. And in doing so with this request, we've also created an additional 100 to 150 foot buffer between the backs of these lots and their house, which sits very in close proximity to this property boundary, our eastern property boundary line. We've also incorporated here at this corner at the intersection of Crumley and Selfridge, there's about 6.5 acres in this area here that we've left as a greenway. One, to create an opportunity for our homeowners to have a buffer from traffic and up and down Crumley Road, and to also buffer the community itself from the neighboring traffic that goes up and down Crumley Road on a daily basis. So we've tried to put a lot of thought into how we approach this process, how we laid out the subdivision, how we pushed the lots into the middle of the community and in back off of the main roads, so that way we could leave it fairly in its natural vegetative state from a buffering perspective. And as a part of our open space contribution, we've incorporated and proposed some paved walking paths down to a pavilion that will sit overlooking an existing pond that will be used as a water feature and a passive amenity area for our residents. And we would anticipate that this amenity will contain a dog park, some bench seating, and a picnic area. We have tweaked the layout just a little bit from what you guys have in your report, and it would look a little more like something like this. We've left some open space here between the lots. This would be a paved trail down to a pavilion area. We would set some seating and picnic areas and have a dog park sort of off to the side there as a part of the passive amenity area. Staff did recommend approval, and we hope that you guys see the merit in our request.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant? Mr. Risher?
The last time that this property came before us, I think on our site visits, we found that there are some large transmission poles, I think cement power poles, and could you show us approximately where those are located and how they are accounted for within the green space or within the residential area?
Yes, sir. There's one probably right about here. They're literally in the right-of-way of Selfridge Road, and they come up to the corner. There's a big one right at the corner of the intersection of Crumley and Selfridge. And if they're not within the right-of-way, they're very close. My guess is they're just a bit outside of it, but probably right along that. And then it turns and runs down the property line here on the eastern side of Selfridge Road.
All right, so there's nothing inside the interior of the property like that?
No, sir, there is not.
And let's see, I guess maybe this is a question for the staff. What is the lot width under the conservation subdivision plan?
10,890 square feet.
Okay, but the width itself at the building line,
Of
If
the,
memory serves me correctly, Mr. Risher, it's somewhere around 100 feet. Gotcha. And with it being on sewer, it's 60. Yeah. Septic, if it's on septic system, it's 100 feet. But the lot square footage is 10,890 square feet.
okay, so the changes that you have made on the drawing that you just put on the board, does that comply with the lot width requirements for the conservation
Yes, sir.
subdivision?
We exceed that significantly. I think the
Okay.
minimum 60, and we have 90s and 75, so we're significantly higher than that.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
I have a question. Around 60 feet will allow you for a side entrance garage?
It would be tough. I mean, that would not be typical on a 60-foot wide.
So what are your plans?
90s and 75s.
So you will have side?
Yes, we will have side entry where feasible, and that is also a condition of zoning on the R2S as well. For that section, let me bear just pull this back out. So these would be side entry where feasible because they're 90 feet wide is the way they're drawn, and these are 75. They're smaller in nature as we're working towards an age-targeted product in that particular section with the entrance off of Selfridge Road.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
What would be the minimum square footage of the product?
On the age targeted, most of which would probably, I would say 1,900 to 2,000 to 2,200, and I would say on the bigger product, anywhere from 2,400 to 2,800.
Any additional questions? Yes.
Who will own the open space? Well, I guess maybe my first question should be, will there be a homeowners association?
Yes, sir, there will.
Okay, and will the homeowners association be the owner of the green space, the open space?
Yes, sir. That is typically the way that we set it up. There has been some discussion about donating an area up at the corner for a park-like setting, but we do not have anything solidified at this point. So it would be maintained by the homeowners association.
And you say that's an existing pond?
Yes,
Lake
ma'am.
water?
It is.
It's already there?
Yes, ma'am. It's actually very nice. It's very clean, very clear, a lot of fish. It's actually pretty nice.
And about how large is that pond?
You know, I think it's probably about 2.5 or 3 acres.
Any other questions?
Just one. Are there any dams that are connected, associated with that pond?
Yes, sir. I mean, it has a dam. Yes, sir.
Do you know the conditions?
We believe that it's in good shape. We have not had a dam study done on it, but we don't have anything below it either. There's no development that, that will occur below that.
So if you have a homeowners association, there will be required to make any repairs or that?
Correct.
Needed?
Yes, sir. That portion of the property will be a part of the homeowners association, which will then be ran by a management company.
Any other questions?
I guess I have a question for staff, and maybe Dante. Except for the requirements of the listed in the code for a conservation district, will the applicant be required to follow the conditions that were agreed upon when we granted the R2 designation?
The developer will be required to follow the conditions of zoning granted by the Board of Commissioners when they were rezoned to the R2S zoning.
Will they be required to have it up to code prior to turning it over to the homeowners association?
Dams are a little bit more technical, and there are other agencies that get involved. If this is not a dam that was placed in by an engineering group of some sort, then it could have been placed in by maybe a previous homeowner, which means that if they decide to upgrade it, do anything to it, they would have to go through the Department of Natural Resources. If they're affecting state waters, they have to deal with the Army Corps of Engineers. So with respect to the homeowners association taking care of it or being responsible for the upkeep of it, it would extend beyond the boundaries of what the county can do.
Any other questions? Mr. Risher?
I think many of these small ponds throughout the county which are associated with prior farming practice were approved through the Soil Conservation Service, as well as the Department of Natural Resources for larger ponds.
All right, thank you. Any other questions for the applicant? If not, you can be seated. Thank you.
Thank you,
All
ma'am.
right. At this time, we'll allow 10 minutes for anyone to speak in favor of this case. 10 minutes for anyone who would like to speak in favor. Please state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Jeff Dawes. I live at 761 Crumbly Road, and I actually live, I guess, right here, right there. My property aligns with this property, and I am here to speak in favor because the original plan that was there was actually going to move the property right by my property line, which would be only 20 feet or so from my driveway, if that much. So this gives us a 100-foot buffer from my property line, not only my property line, but all the properties around this development. So it would give a nice buffer there, and it would even while the development's happening, it would be a lot more quieter and so forth around our neighborhood. So I speak in favor of this plan because of the buffer that it's creating around all of our properties. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who would like to speak in favor of this case? None? All right, we'll move on. Anyone now who would like to speak in opposition? 10 minutes. Anyone who would like to speak in opposition, please state your name and address for the record, please.
Yeah, it's Christine Bobo, 446 Kimberly Court. And just to bring up, as Mr. Gibbs stated, there is a pond there, a pond with a dam, and we do know that there's been issues in the county right now with ponds and dams. They've put themselves out as a conservation subdivision, but a majority of that property seems to be in wetlands. So they kind of really didn't have a choice as far as making themselves a conservation subdivision if they wanted to put 100 homes in there. They just made the lot smaller to accommodate for 100 homes. If they took into account the wetlands there, there's a lot of property they can't build on. When it rains, you're going to have flooding. The more impervious surface you have, the more water runoff you're going to have. The elevation of the front part of the neighborhood is around 800. It drops from there. There's wetlands and rivers that run all back behind there. Back in here, there's wetlands and rivers. There's rivers and wet areas back in here. I didn't get a chance to look up the soils to see how damp the soil reports were in that area. But as you can see right here, there's a couple of lots, which I think he said they were leaving vacant, but we've got wetlands hitting up into those lots. So these lots here at the back, they run the chance of getting wet when we start getting extreme amounts of rain like we've had lately. I'm sure anybody that lives near a river lately has seen how high the water's getting. And once again, we're running into that problem with the pond. Is it a pond or is it a detention pond? With all the water runoff, these ponds and these lakes turn into detention ponds for the county. As you continue to build more houses on more property, we're running into problems where we're having flooding. We see this every night on the news, people talking about how they've got rivers running through their backyard because of the overbuild of the counties. There's so much water running, there's nowhere for it to go because you've got so much concrete, so much parking spaces, so much house, and very little land. Now, yeah, he's got green space here, but a lot of it's already wetlands. I don't think adding, 100 lots on little teeny tiny postage stamp lots is gonna help that factor.
Thank you. Anyone else who would like to speak in opposition to this case? Anyone else who would like to speak in opposition? Now then, did the board have any additional questions for applicant or staff? Mr. Risher.
I have a question for the applicant. Mr. Kemp, when you and your engineers drew up the plans for this subdivision, did you not take into account the location of wetlands and soil conditions? I think that's the purpose of this type of
Absolutely.
of conservation subdivision, is to take care of those things.
Yes, sir.
Or to avoid them in some situations. But could you tell us the process that you went
Yes,
through?
sir. We have had the wetlands on the project, on the property delineated. Just for everyone's reference, this was the original layout. The only floodplain on the property is in this blue area back here. There may be some that's incorporated as a part of this, but the blue area is mainly the floodplain. So to put it in its proper context, the majority of this property is very usable. And we did delineate all of the wetlands per your question, Mr. Risher. And so our Moorbass is very aware of where those are and has been creative in how they aligned the layout of the community.
Is there any difference in the number of lots that this board and that the Board of Commissioners approved in the prior plan that you saw?
No, sir, this
and
does not.
current plan?
No, sir, this does not increase the density or lot count in any way. It's still 100 lots.
And you said that there's 57% area that's set aside for green space or for open space, is that correct?
Yes, sir, it's above 50%. I think it's around 54, I think, give or take percentage points, but yes, sir, it's above 50. And you'll see the ordinance for the conservation subdivision only requires 40, and we're substantially above that at, 50 plus.
All right, I don't have any more questions.
Thank you.
Yep. One more question.
Would you object to the having any repairs that are needed to be done to that dam done prior to it being turned over to the homeowners association?
Yeah, that's an engineering question. I personally wouldn't have any issue with that. I'm sure we could have it looked at, but I'm not an engineer, so I can't, when you start tinkering with that, it's state waters, and you get into a whole different set of rules and circumstances in which I'm not totally privy to, not being a civil engineer. But no, sir, to answer your question, I would not have a problem with that.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions for applicant or staff? All right, thank you. You may be seated.
Yes, ma'am, thank you.
If not, then let's call the case.
Case number CU-19-03, the Reservoir Group of Watkinsville, Georgia, requests a conditional use for property located at 719 Crumbly Road and land lots 8 and 25 of the 11th District. The property consists of 86.5 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a conservation subdivision. This property is located in Commission District 4 and was presented by Ms. Jewel Richardson, Planner 1.
Do I have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we, on case number CU-19-03, that we adopt staff's recommendation and approve the applicant's request.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? And the motion carries. Thank you. And let's call the next case, please.
Case number CU-19-01, Moises Gonzalez of McDonough, Georgia, requests a conditional use for property located at 348 Sowell, I'm going to assume that's road or lane, in land lot 183 of the 7th District. The property consists of 4.785 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a non-commercial kennel. This property is located in Commission District 1 and will be presented by Ms. Jewel Richardson, Planner 1.
Good evening, Chair and Board.
You're busy tonight.
Yes. The conditional use request is for a non-commercial kennel located at 348 Sowell Road. The subject property consists of 4.87 plus or minus acres. The applicant intent is to secure her own dogs. The applicant understands that after 4 dogs, she would need to have an approved conditional use to be in compliance with the ULDC. The applicant has met, her request has met 3 of the 4 criteria for a non-commercial kennel. So with that being said, staff recommends approval. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
You said met 3 of the 4?
Yes.
Okay, could you mind going over those, please?
Animals allow up to 10. What was preview to us, she hasn't given us the total amount of dogs, but she knew after 4 she needed to get a conditional use. So she's met that, knowing that she only can have up to 10 domestic animals. The minimum setbacks for any residential zoning district of any building, she's met that with the primary structure. And outdoor runs and pens, she's met that requirement. And for the standard, as far as having fencing and whatever, and what have you, she met that standard.
Oh, thank you, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Thank
Any
you.
other questions? I see you writing. I was just wondering if you had anything else. Any other questions? All right, if not, we'll ask the applicant to please come forward. The applicant. Please state your name and address for the record, please.
Yes. My name is Moises Gonzalez, and the address is 348 Swell Road.
Is there anything that you would like to add to what the planner said tonight?
Well, I just want to be in compliance with the city rules, and I got on my knowledge that if I have more than 4 dogs, I need to have a kennel and how to retrain the dogs and all that, and that's why I submit my application to be in compliance.
Any questions for the applicant? Mr. Barr.
Do you breed the dogs, sell them? Do you sell the dogs, breed the dogs?
Yeah, I'm planning to breed dogs, yes.
Okay, so is it a business?
Well, it will be my side job business, yes.
Okay, so it's a business now, or your goal is to go into business? Is your goal to go into business?
I'm not gonna lie. I already started selling it, so I'm trying to build all this on the right way.
Mr. Risher? Oh,
What kind of dogs do you have there?
Oh, golden retrievers and golden doodles.
I have a question.
sure.
In your request for the variance, you indicated that this would be a non-commercial kennel. Now, but here you state that you intend to make this an active, ongoing type business.
Well, my understanding is that the non-commercial is for my dogs, right? But of course, they get together and they got puppies, and I can have more than 10.
Our code allows the sale of the puppies as a non-commercial kennel.
Okay.
Any other questions for the applicant?
Oh, how many dogs do you have now? You have the answer to that.
10.
How many dogs do you?
10.
10. Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you. You may be seated. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
We'll allow 10 minutes now for anyone who would like to speak in favor of this case. Anyone who would like to speak in favor of this case? None. 10 minutes for anyone who would like to speak in opposition to this case. 10 minutes. Please state your name and address for the record, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, board members. My name is Leslie Irwin, and I live at 302 Sowell Road. About 5 weeks ago, my husband, Rick, and I moved from Lake Down North to Sowell Road. What we didn't realize when we bought that property was that our neighbors behind us at 348 Sowell Road, Flag Lot, were trying to get approval for a non-commercial kennel, as they were and had already been in violation of the law that says they can have no more than 4 dogs. What we realized as soon as we moved into our new home was that our neighbor had a bunch of dogs that barked continuously when outside in their open-air metal kennel. One of our neighbors complained about the dogs. Code enforcement came out to the property on November 1 of 2018, gave a warning to the property owner for having too many dogs. And we verified that with code enforcement officer. Easy went out there. I've spoken to him since then. A few weeks later, the owner applied for a conditional use permit for the non-commercial kennel. I believe that he told, or at least the information provided in the applicant package was that he told planning and zoning that he would keep the dogs inside. He wouldn't be using the metal outdoor kennel, which according to critical point number 4 says that the site plan submitted shows an existing metal building encroaching into the minimum 50-foot setback requirement from any residential zoning district, and that borders onto the back property line of our property. Okay? But what he hasn't done is he hasn't said he wouldn't use that metal kennel, but that's not happening. He continues to use the metal kennel. continues to put the dogs outside, continues to allow them to bark incessantly and continuously, at times for up to hours at a time, at all times of day, all times of night. He just won't control the dogs. So it got so bad that on March 8th, my husband called animal control because of the just incessant nuisance barking that was going on, continuous, nonstop. Animal control officer Brian Long came out and gave a warning about controlling the dogs. Property owner still wouldn't control the dogs. We sent notice and demand on behalf of the neighbors in the neighborhood on March 16th that not only was Mr. Gonzalez in violation of county code for having too many dogs and for the nuisance barking, but he's also violating protective covenants that are on record, real property records of Henry County and Superior Court that specifically prohibit on his property and 13 other properties surrounding, specifically and expressly prohibit dog kennels to be allowed on those properties. And those covenants run with the land. All owners have constructive notice of that, and they're effective through, I believe, 2033, a copy of which was provided to Planning and Zoning several weeks ago because Mr. Gonzalez did not provide that information when he applied for his application. With that said, notice and demand sent, still allowing the dogs to continue to bark uncontrollably, still putting them outside, not keeping in his property as he said he would. And frankly, code enforcement has been out and given him a warning. Animal control has been out and given him a warning. The neighbors, we've given him a warning. We've let him know that there are protective covenants that are designed to protect not only his property, but all of our properties that are impacted by this. There are a fair number of neighbors in this neighborhood that are here in opposition of what Mr. Gonzalez is trying to do. They've expressed, as do we, my husband and I, grave concerns about what Mr. Gonzalez is doing and the impact that it will have and is already having on our neighborhood. We're concerned about the increased traffic. Because I can tell you about a week and a half after we moved in, this is before the time change, my husband happened to be outside, probably moving some stuff in, trying to get us settled, and some strange person drove up into our driveway and asked him, "Hey, are you the guy selling the dogs, selling the puppies?" My husband pointed him to where we thought the dogs were because we've been hearing them for a while. This is a quiet, private, very nice, secluded little stretch of road. It's a little jewel right there off of 81, very close into town. We bought property there because it was so nice and quiet. And I think the rest of the neighbors probably did the same. We're concerned about that increased traffic. We're also concerned about the nuisance barking because our neighbor has just not done anything to show that he is going to keep these dogs under control. Not only his dogs, but his dogs also incite other people's dogs to bark, day and night. We're also concerned about, as a neighborhood and as fellow neighbors, we're concerned about our right to use and enjoy our own property. It's pretty hard to be outside when you've got 10 dogs barking continuously and incessantly for up to hours at a time. Finally, I think everybody in our neighborhood is absolutely concerned about what's going to happen to our property values. I can assure the board, had my husband and I known before we put a contract in on that property, perfect as that property was for us, it's a Charles Gower home, it's 4 acres, it's got a nice shop, it's got a pool, everything we wanted. Perfectly situated close to where I work, where my husband works. If we'd have known what we know now, before we put a contract on that property, we would have never purchased. We would have never put a contract on that property. We would have moved on. And I'm very concerned about the impact that this non-commercial kennel is going to have on our property values going forward and on my neighbor's property values. So with that said, I think I speak for a fair number, again, of property owners that live up and down that road and along Whitaker Road. They're impacted. We'd ask that the Zoning Advisory Board deny this conditional use permit. Thank you. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. We're at about the 6-minute mark and 10-minute time. Anyone else would like to speak in opposition to this case? Please come forward. Please state your name and address for the record, please. We're coming up on 6.5 minutes of the 10-minute time.
My name is Tim Feltman. I live at 268 Sowell Road, and I can tell you I agree. I can hear the dogs at all times. I can go out at 10 o'clock at night, wouldn't let mine out, in the backyard, and I have a fenced area that they go in, and I can hear dogs barking down the street, and once they start, other dogs start, and it's a mess. And I agree, the traffic going up and down the street now has gotten worse. And, I've been there 14 years, and the reason I moved there is because it was quiet. And I live on 2 acres, and I'm probably 300, 400 yards from that house, and I can still hear them through wooded areas and everything. And I agree, I don't want a, non-commercial kennel on the street that I live on. I mean, I've been living there. I keep my dogs quiet. I actually had animal control called on me because they said I had 4 or 5 dogs in my yard barking. My dogs are both indoor dogs, and it's a pit bull and a black lab, and they stay in the house. The only time they go out is to go to the bathroom. So I'm getting code enforcement calling me because nobody knew where it was. Now we know that the neighbor's got 10 dogs. I mean, I didn't know he had that many dogs down there, and I don't want to see a kennel down the street. That's not fair to us and everybody in that area.
Thank you.
Hello. Jeff Beecham, 259 Whitaker Road. If you probably noticed on the map how close all these properties are together, there are quite a few houses in that area, and everything that's been stated so far is absolutely correct. It's been said good fences make good neighbors. Part of the reason is because fences don't wander into your yard, fences don't bark, fences don't leave poop in your yard, fences don't accidentally escape and wander around the neighborhood, and fences don't multiply. If you think 10 dogs, if you only had one that was male, how many puppies are you going to have and how quickly? So I think we've all seen the news, and we don't want to be on the news as one of those places that shows up where animals are being abused or confined unnecessarily. All those things I think are very pertinent to the question at hand. But I think more than that is, has been stated already, all the neighbors around that area just don't want the traffic, we don't want the noise, and we think it's a misuse of the property. Thank you.
Thank you. Got 1 minute left. 1 minute left of the 10 minutes. Please state your name and address for the record, please.
Heather Hardy, 85 Sal Road. You can't see that. My parents bought property on Sal Road in 1988. We have been there since then. I would like to speak from an animal perspective. I work at a vet and I work in rescue, and there is no place for breeding just in general because the overpopulation of dogs. I have some stats for Henry County from last year. Last year, there were 565 dogs and 570 cats in Henry County euthanized. I just want to speak to that on overpopulation of dogs and cats. There's really no reason to breed dogs. There's plenty of golden retrievers and there's plenty of doodles in animal control or whatever. But anyway, as a resident of Sowell Road, it's just not ideal. We have 4 dogs, well, 3 now, one of them passed on, but I think 10 dogs is, unless you're in rescue and you're actively rehoming them and finding a place for them to be, that's just too many. And I would like to, say that, think about that, just on that level. Breeding shouldn't be necessary. It seems like it's already bringing in a lot of extra traffic, so please consider that.
Thank you. So we're at our 10-minute time limit. Any additional questions for the applicant? No questions for the applicant or staff?
I have a question
For staff or
for
applicant?
staff.
Staff.
Could you tell us again how many animals that he could keep lawfully before he has to apply for a non-commercial kennel?
He can only have up to 4 before he comes in for a non-commercial kennel.
Okay, thank you.
I do have a question. Would the applicant please come forward, come back up? I'm hearing a lot of concerns about the barking.
Yeah, I heard that.
And I'm wondering what, if anything, has been done to address that?
Well, I try to keep my dogs quiet, right? But they're animals. They're not humans. They're not trying to, I'm trying to keep them quiet, right? Most of the time. But,
Have you been cited by either code enforcement or the police for
Cited?
violating, cited, been given a warning?
Well, yeah, one day, one officer came to the house and asked me for if the dogs were barking. He went in there and then he found out that the dogs were not barking by the time that he get there. I'm not saying that the dogs don't bark, they do bark, but it's not like constantly barking like they were saying here.
Do they bark in excess of 15 minutes at a time?
Excuse me?
Do they bark in excess of 15 minutes at a time?
No, I don't think so, no.
Thank you, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Any other questions for either staff or the applicant? If not, let's call the case.
Case number CU-19-01, Moises Gonzalez of McDonough, Georgia, requests a conditional use for property located at 348 Sowell Road and land lot 183 of the 7th District. The property consists of 4.785 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a non-commercial kennel. This property is located in Commission District 1 and was presented by Ms. Jewel Richardson.
Do I have a motion, please?
I'd like to make a motion, CU 1901, to deny the conditional use permit.
Please, all in favor?
Second.
All right, I'm sorry, I need a second. I'm sorry. Yep, I second. And all in favor? And the motion carries. Let's call the next case, please.
Case number VR-19-02, Moises Gonzalez of McDonough, Georgia, requests a variance from development standards for property located at 348 Sowell Road and land lot 183 of the 7th District. The property consists of 4.785 plus or minus acres, and the request is to reduce the minimum road frontage. The property is located in Commission District 1 and will be presented by Ms. Jewel Richardson, Planner 1.
Yes. The variance request is to reduce the requirement for a flag lot to have 60 feet of road frontage to 30 feet of road frontage at the property at 348 Sowell Road. According to the survey submitted, the subject property was platted in 2004, with 30 feet of road frontage. In 2009, the ULDC changed the requirement to 60 feet of road frontage instead of 40 on flag lots. Currently, the subject property is legally non-conforming because it does not comply with the frontage requirement. The applicant is requesting the reduction from 60 to 30 to comply with the frontage requirement. If approving the request, it will clear up any future issues that the property may have moving forward.
Staff is recommending.
Staff is recommending approval.
Approval, all right.
Yes.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? Not, we'll ask the
Well,
app.
I have a
I'm sorry.
May have to ask this of Dante. Under ULDC section 11.01.00, it indicates that nonconformities may continue until they are removed or discontinued. If that is the case, why would we consider this case at this time?
Well, there's been no formal withdrawal or tabling of this matter, so we have to proceed as the application has been submitted to the county. But with respect to the nonconformity or the vested rights or grandfather status, given that now the applicant does not have a conditional use for a non-commercial kennel, the use of that property has not technically changed, and so it remains what it was prior to, meaning that the grandfather or vested rights are still in place and that they have not been voided because of a change in use per that section you referenced in Chapter 11, Mr. Carmichael. So given that this case is still technically an item and active, it will be in the Zoning Advisory Board's best interest to proceed.
Any other questions for staff? Mr. Risher.
So any new flag lots that were created in this community or else throughout the county, as far as that's concerned, all would have to have a 60-foot frontage.
Yes, sir.
Which basically is the equivalent to the minimum roadway right-of-way if a public road were ever to be built, too. So I think that's a partial reason. But I think, as you can see from the map, probably most of the parcels in this area were developed under the old rules of a 30-foot frontage flag lot. So.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? We'll ask the applicant to please come forward. The applicant, please come forward. State your name and address for the record.
Moises Gonzalez, 348 Sowell Road.
And you have anything else you'd like to add to staff comments?
No, not really.
Any additional questions for the applicant? All right, thank you. You may be seated.
Thank you.
This time we'll allow 10 minutes for anyone to speak in favor of this case. None? 10 minutes for those who would like to speak in opposition of this case. None? Any additional questions for staff or applicant? No? Let's call the case.
Case number VR-19-02, Moises Gonzalez of McDonough, Georgia, requests a variance from development standards for property located at 348 Sowell Road in land lot 183 of the 7th District. The property consists of 4.785 plus or minus acres, and the request is to reduce the minimum road frontage. This property is located in Commission District 1 and was presented by Ms. Jewel Richardson.
I'm sorry, I do have a question. I'm confused with the previous case, with this. So what does this change?
All right, technically, if the previous case was approved, then the use changes and the vested rights would have gone away, meaning they would need a variance to come into compliance with current regulations. The variance regarding the road frontage. So that's kind of how it has to do with the previous case. Now that given that the previous case was not approved and that it was denied, the property is still vested or still grandfathered as it was before the conditional use and all of that. So technically, the variance application has not had a formal withdrawal or postponement or tabling, and so the zoning advisory board, you will be obligated to hear it and make a motion and render a decision.
Okay.
Do I have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to deny.
Second?
I second.
All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. We'll call the next case, please.
Case number VR-19-04, United States Cold Storage of McDonough, Georgia, requests a variance from development standards for property located at 1420 Greenwood Road in land lots 253 and 254 of the 7th District. The property consists of 24.34 plus or minus acres, and the request is to increase the maximum height allowance from 75 feet to 130 feet to allow for an expansion of an existing cold storage warehouse facility. This property is located in Commission District 2 and will be presented by Mrs. Yuritsa Nieves, Planner 2.
Good evening, Chair and Board members. This variance request is for property located at 1420 Greenwood Road, which is a part of the Greenwood Industrial Park. The exact location of the subject property can be seen highlighted in green in your exhibit books, as well as on the overhead screen. The applicant is requesting a variance to increase the maximum building height from 75 feet, as required in an M1 zoned property, to 130 feet. For new development, there is no maximum height limitation, but as this is an addition to an existing building, we cannot consider it new development, and therefore it's limited to 75 feet height. So as seen on the site plan, there's an existing warehouse facility on the property which is occupied by the applicant, U.S. Cold Storage. They have plans to expand their existing facility, which would include a up to 130-foot high, fully automated tower. The ULDC expressly requires all 7 criteria point to be met in order to recommend approval for a variance. And due to the applicant technically not meeting all of those criteria points, staff recommends denial of the applicant's request. I'd be happy to take any questions you may have.
Mr. Risher?
Could you point on the map on what part of the building that they're planning for the 130-foot structure?
So there are 2 portions proposed. I'll point to the tower.
All right, so the rest of it will remain at the 75-foot limit, and it's only one section that will be the 130 feet.
Yes, that's correct.
Any other questions? Mr. Barr?
I'm waiting for the applicant.
Yeah, okay. That's fine. I have a question. In the future, do you anticipate the guidelines for a change like this to accommodate the increase that's being requested here?
Yes.
Yeah, I can see that as well. Given we do actually have standards for new developments to allow for unlimited height for developments like this, we are anticipating an overhaul of our actual ULDC this year. It'll probably be towards the end of the year before it actually gets finished. But yes, to answer your question.
Gotcha. All right, thank you. Any other questions for staff? Not, we'll ask the applicant to please come forward. Please state your name and address for the record. Thanks.
Mike Irvin, 55 Carter Drive, McDonough, Georgia. Our customer approached us, and we needed to add an expansion, and to do it within the footprint that we currently have at the site, we wanted to go up to take advantage of the footprint of the facility. And that's why we're requesting height variance on the property.
Have you contacted the Henry County Fire Department?
Yes, we've talked to them. They were actually on site last week, and we had conversations with the fire department. We have a good relationship with the fire department. We do annual hazmat training with them because we do have a hazardous chemical on site and hydrous ammonia, so we do training with them every year. And there was a lot of conversation with the fire department on the training that they would have to develop if they needed to pull someone off the roof, let's say.
What did they say? I mean, what's the verdict?
I mean, it was just it was a meet and greet type of conversation. It wasn't a formal meeting, but it wasn't anything that they felt that they couldn't handle.
Mr. Risher, sorry.
Yeah, I think I can respond to that question a little bit. I think you and I have talked on the
Yes.
phone, but after our discussion, I did talk with our assistant county manager, who for many years was in the fire department, and what he relayed to me was that the fact that this addition would be sprinklered per code, and that we have fire apparatus, ladder trucks that can reach up to handle any fires that this facility may have, and so what he related to me was that the fire department was comfortable with this expansion.
Right.
I have one question. There's a local airport in that area where you're at, that fly regular in that area. How would that affect their aviation operations?
They're probably 3 or 4 miles south of us. Millard's Landing, I believe, is the community, the fly-in community. I don't think we're in the direct guide path how they come into the runway. No, I didn't do any research on that.
The landing strip is closer to Lester Mill Road. This development is closer to Highway 155, to kind of give you how far it is from that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Risher?
You know, I have just a couple of more questions. I think cold storage actually has two facilities within the Greenwood Industrial Park. Could you tell us what the difference is in those facilities? And secondly, have you looked at the possibility at this site on expanding horizontally rather than up?
Right, and the two facilities are almost identical. This one was built in 2000 initially, so the ceiling is 40 feet, and the new building is 50 with a coil system, sprinkler system. Just to take advantage of automation, we're trying to get into automated warehouses, and for those to really run efficient, you have all this space above, to try to maximize your return on your capital investment for automation. So it makes more sense to go up than to go east, west, north, or south.
If you're not expanding horizontally, then what would the balance of your property be used for? Just outside storage, or?
On this property here?
Yes.
It would be fully built out if we're approved for the expansion. It would be fully built out.
I think it's 24 acres, I believe, so it's going to be, totally built out at some point.
Yes. Yeah, it would be truck parking or building, and then you have employee parking as well. It's 65,000 square feet is our part, is what we're trying to get approved for.
And then just one more question. Will you be adding more employees as a result of this expansion?
Yes, over the next 5 years, approximately 140 employees.
Madam Chair, just for the record, need to clarify what I stated earlier. I said Lester Mill Road, where Lester Mill Road and Bill Gardner Parkway intersect with respect to the landing strip. It's closer to that end of Lester Mill Road. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that clarification. Does that help you, Mr. Barr? Yeah. Oh, yeah, right. Thank you. About how long, once you start building this, how long will it take to get finished?
It takes about 16 months for an automated facility. It's a little bit different construction because it's rack supported. Your racking is your building, and you just kind of build walls around the racking, so that's what takes longer. It's different than your typical conventional type warehouse.
Are there any other facilities in the area that have the 130 feet height that you're aware of?
Well, our second facility is a new development, so we were approved, and we're building an expansion on that as well, an automated, on our other property on Medline. So we'll have two expansions going at the same time.
Any other questions? All right, thank you. May be seated. Thank you. At this time, we'll allow 10 minutes for anyone who would like to speak in favor of this case. In favor? None? 10 minutes for anyone who would like to speak in opposition of this case? None? Any additional questions for either staff or the applicant? None? All right, we'll call the case.
Case number VR-19-04, United States Cold Storage of McDonough, Georgia, request a variance from development standards for property located at 1420 Greenwood Road and land lots 253 and 254 of the 7th District. The property consists of 24.34 plus or minus acres, and the request is to increase the maximum height allowance from 75 feet to 130 feet to allow for an expansion of an existing cold storage warehouse facility. This property is located in Commission District 2 and was presented by Mrs. Yuritsa Nieves, Planner 2.
Well, at the risk of getting caught on a technicality, this is my district, so I will make a motion that we actually approve, and not go with staff recommendation to deny this, but actually approve the request for VR 19-04. Do I have a second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Next case, please.
Case number VR-19-05, Henry Longleaf LLC of Fayetteville, Georgia, requests a variance from development standards for property located at 520 Noblewood Drive in land lot 85 of the 7th District. The property consists of 18,000 square feet, and the request is to reduce the front yard setback requirement from 40 feet to 31 feet to allow for a single-family dwelling. This property is located in Commission District 3 and will be presented by Mrs. Yuritsa Nieves.
Good evening again, Chair and board members. This variance request is for property located at 520 Noblewood Drive, which is a part of the Longleaf subdivision. The exact location of the subject property can be seen highlighted in green in your exhibit books, as well as on the overhead screen. The applicant is requesting a variance to reduce the minimum front yard setback from 40 feet as required by the final subdivision plat to 31 feet to allow for a single-family home. As seen on the site plan, there are wetlands that cover a substantial portion of the subject property, and there's also a 25-foot buffer required from these wetlands. After consultation with the building department and plan review staff, it's their determination that the subject property requires this variance in order to be able to develop a single-family home in accordance with ULDC standards and the property's zoning conditions. So due to the presence of these wetlands, the minimum buffer requirements, zoning conditions, and taking into consideration that input, we recommend approval of the request. And I'd be happy to take any questions you have.
Questions for staff? Mr. Risher?
Yes, could you tell us what the zoning district is for this subdivision? And could you tell us if it's on public sewer and water, or if it's on septic systems?
Okay, the property is on sewer. Because it's 18,000 square feet, properties on septic require at least 30,000. So that alone tells us that it is on sewer. The property was zoned to R3. In 2002, it was zoned to R2, single-family residence, but in 2009, our code changed, and R2 zoned properties on sewer were changed to R3. So it was approved to R2. Due to the ULDC change, it now has a zoning of R3.
Has there been any other variances on this subdivision, either administrative or otherwise, that have been granted or applied for due to the steep slopes and topography that are throughout this subdivision?
It is my understanding that the applicant has applied for at least one administrative waiver for some lots in this subdivision, but I wouldn't know which lots they were off the top of my head.
Okay, could you tell us what the current front setback is for the R3 district?
As per the plat for the subdivision, it's 40 feet. For current R3 standards, I'd ask for help from staff.
Well, we all need some help occasionally. Go ahead.
And Mr. Risher, did you want to know generally for that zoning district or per the plat for this subdivision?
For the zoning district generally.
Yes, sir. Mr. Risher, for R3, it's 30 feet for the front, 10 feet for the side, and 30 feet for the rear.
Okay, so this must have been platted under some pre-existing rules then, if it's 30 feet now, but it was 40 feet at the time that it was platted. So
Yes, sir, that's very likely.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Any other questions for staff? If not, we'll ask the applicant to please come forward. State your name and address for the record.
Yes, good evening, Chair and Board. My name is Tiffany Hogan, 1371 Dogwood Drive, Conyers, Georgia.
Anything you'd like to add to staff comments?
We She covered it pretty well. The setback is just needed so that we can put a footprint of a home on this lot. We're putting a little bit over a 1,600 square foot home on the lot if this variance is approved.
Any questions for the applicant? Mr. Risher?
Is all of this, this section where this lot is located, are they all going to be 1,600 square foot minimum, or is it going to vary?
No, sir. There will be 3 product types, 1,600 square foot, 1,800 square foot, and 2,000 square foot.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? None? You may be seated. Thank you. This time we'll allow 10 minutes for anyone who would like to speak in favor of this case. None? Anyone who would like to speak in opposition? 10 minutes. Anyone in opposition of this case? Please state your name and address for the record, please.
Christine Bobo, 446 Kimberly Court. Just once again, I just want to bring this to everyone's attention. I'm not sure when this longleaf was started, what the original plat was on that. But here again, we've got a wetlands issue. Now, I don't know how it was originally platted, you know, if that wetlands issue was made clear when all the lots were drawn, but here we are, we're building in the neighborhood, and we need to have a variance because now we're running into wetlands and they can't put a house on there. So the question then comes, when you're putting these neighborhoods in, whether it's a conservation neighborhood or a regular neighborhood, and you're dealing with these wetland areas or, you know, areas prone to flooding, 100-year flood-prone zones. You're building these homes so close to these flood zones that the more houses we start building, the more flooding we're going to have in the county. And, you know, you're giving a variance because of there's flood zone back there. Well, you know, how many more lots in this subdivision are going to have this problem? Because it looks like there's a lot on either side, unless that's just green space, that looks like they may have a similar issue. And how many more lots in that neighborhood as it goes up this side? I mean, does that run into a lot, or is that this side up here, does that run into a lot, or is that vacant land? Just something for you to consider as we start adding more and more subdivisions and homes, and they're getting closer and closer together. The lots are getting smaller and smaller. We're running out of space for the water to go, and we're going to have issues. I'm bringing it up again. We've got issues already right now in the county. Swan Lake, Lake Dow, there's several other lakes. These are homeowner-owned lakes, but now we have to suffer the repercussions of the flooding because the county has let these homes get built and without consideration of where the water's going. And the more we build, the more we're going to have issues with water, the more problems these homeowners are going to have. I think a lot of these neighborhoods don't even realize the detention ponds in their neighborhood, they are responsible to take care of those. That's not a county problem. And I don't think this has ever been made for anyone to know about when they go and buy a home in a subdivision. So a lot of these detention ponds, it's either the person that's lot is sitting near the detention pond, either they're the ones directly responsible or the homeowners in the neighborhood. So when you have a problem with a detention pond, they call the county and the county goes, that's not our problem, it's yours. Just something for you to consider.
Please state your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening. Edward Bowe, 320 Shackbark Lane, Longleaf Subdivision. I have a issue with this Phase 2 development in the subdivision. I currently live in Phase 1, as well as several other homeowners. Our opposition is the fact that these lots are considerably smaller than our present lots, as well as the homes, and well as the plans that we've seen for these new homes aesthetically are horrible. They have no similarity to our present homes, so there's no continuity with the neighborhood, which in turn will definitely bring down the property value or not ensure that the property value increases. Currently, a lot of the homes are between 3,000 to 4,500 square feet. These proposed homes that we see are anywhere from less than 2,000 to like a maximum of maybe 3,400 square feet, which is a very big difference. And a lot of the one-story homes that they propose are small, within that 2,000 to like maybe even 2,200 square feet range. And what it's doing is these smaller lots, like I heard about where they're trying to reduce the frontage of the properties, where definitely, like I stated, there's going to be a drastic difference between the way the neighborhood looks, and it's enabling them where they could build more properties into a smaller space. So basically, maximize houses so they can maximize money for the builders, which I have a problem with, because us, as well as everybody else that presently lives in that subdivision, the homes were stated in the signage that's in front of the subdivision, homes, mid $300,000 range. These present homes are going to be anywhere between the hundreds to maybe the mid twos, which is unacceptable. If a subdivision basically says the homes are going to be in the $300,000 range, it should stay that way. Now, if you're going to build homes which are presently supposed to be express homes that are going to be significantly less than that, my opinion is you should have a separate subdivision in total where you could have that price range. You shouldn't be building in an existing subdivision where the houses are cheaper, they don't have any similarity to the present existing homes, and the property sizes are smaller. And then you're going to increase the congestion of the neighborhood because now you have smaller homes and you're putting more homes in it. So basically, I don't agree with the plan for the development in the subdivision. Thank you.
Thank you. State your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, my name is John Thomas. I live at 308 ZAB March. I'm 100% agreement with the gentleman just discussed. I don't think they put out the amount of homes that's going to be back there. If anybody from code enforcement, special enforcement, drive back in that area, it's probably anywhere, 10 or 20 or maybe 40 acres of land back there, and there's several roads. So if they're going to build these homes smaller, like the gentleman said, they can build a lot more. The piping and plumbing for them already set up, it seems like they're going to be several more homes that's in close proximity of one another. So like it's going to bring our property value down, and it's only one road into that subdivision. So if you put 40 more houses back there and each homeowner has 2 or 3 cars, you're bringing out anywhere between 75 vehicles on a daily basis. The school bus will have to go back there, and it's deep back there. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Three minutes. We've got 3 minutes left.
Heather Hardy, 85 Sal Road. I want to touch on the environmental aspect again. Studied environmental science in college. Wetlands act kind of as the kidneys of our planet. And I know y'all get a lot of requests to build stuff. And just because you get a request doesn't mean you have to approve it. If we build over all of our wetlands, we're just going to ruin ourselves, isn't just everything. Some's fine. Managed well is great. But it's just like she said, if we build everything up, there's nowhere for anything to go, and it's going to flood. I was thinking about New Orleans. When New Orleans came up as a city, we didn't know about all this stuff with global warming, whatever, whether you believe it or not. New Orleans is going to get covered up pretty soon. This is kind of the same way, just inland. So we can go ahead and recognize that and plan ahead of time and just, give that a little bit of room and let it be a wetland. So just because you get a request doesn't mean you have to approve it. Just please consider our environment as you go forward in all of your requests that you get. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else that would like to speak in opposition to this case? None? Any additional questions for either applicant or staff? Mr. Risher.
Yes, I have a question for the staff. Let's get back to the main issue of this particular, lot, and a variance by our ordinance can be considered if there are physical or other factors that affect the ability to develop a piece of property, which means hardships. So, and I think that in staff's report, it says that due to the presence of wetlands on the subject property, and by the way, I have been extensively, through the subdivision, there are many steep slopes and ravines, as well as wetlands, that the requirements of the property to comply with the zoning conditions, staff recommends approval of the requested variance. So what we have to deal with is there are hardships involved with the ability to develop this lot on the current setbacks. And that's all we have to consider is that tonight.
Yes, sir. So criteria 1, as per our ULDC for granting a variance request, the criteria 1 point says there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property in question because of its size, shape, or topography that are not applicable to other lands or structures in the same district. And I just want to elaborate on the recommendation by our Building and Plan Review Department. They also stated that denial of the variance would require the applicant to request a variance from the Environmental Protection Agency, and if that request were to be denied, the subject property will become an unbuildable lot.
When someone goes to our building department, they want to build a house, the building department, correct me if I'm wrong, but they follow standards set by the EPA and the government for buffers to wetlands. So if the government says well, there's a wetland here, per the law, you cannot build this far from it. So, I mean, they're not building on the wetlands here then.
Correct.
They're following the guidelines set by the government.
Correct, Mr. Barr. As per the final plat, the property is platted with the 25-foot minimum undisturbed buffer, which is the small dotted line.
Gotcha. Okay.
The larger dotted line is the center point of the wetlands, so the home would not be built on any portion of the wetland. Even if we granted the variance, it would not be permitted.
Are we talking about building a single home or more than one home in this area?
This
single home on a
yes,
single
this
lot.
particular variance is for one property, one lot, one request.
Okay.
If other properties are similarly situated, they would have to come in for a variance for every property.
I have a question I'm not sure you can answer. Is there an existing homeowners association? I'm concerned about the appearance, the uniformity issue that was brought up, concerns about that. Normally would be handled by the HOA, architectural control, permission given there. Are you aware, is there a HOA?
Yes, I spoke with a resident today, and she did state that there is an HOA, a homeowners association. And in terms of facade requirements, the property would be held standard to the zoning conditions of the subdivision, and if there are any covenants of the HOA, those would be a separate legal issue. As per the zoning conditions, and I can place them on the overhead, Condition 8 states, front facades shall consist of brick, stone, stucco, or any combination thereof.
Okay, thank you. Mm-hmm. Any other questions for staff? Yes.
There's no minimum square footage?
Yes, Mr. Brown, there is. Condition 3 states house sizes shall be 1/3 1,600 square feet, 1/3 1,800 square feet, and 1/3 2,000 square feet of heated space, and those are minimums.
For that entire subdivision?
For the entire subdivision, yes. I'll place the conditions on the overhead.
Any questions? Thank you. If not, we'll call the case.
No, I'm sorry, but the zoning advisory board has now called for the case, and there cannot be any additional questions unless they
You've
vote to allow it.
had your time. Your 10 minutes is up. We're going to call the case. Let's call the case, please.
Case number VR-19-05, Henry Longleaf LLC of Fayetteville, Georgia, requests a variance from development standards for property located at 520 Noblewood Drive in land lot 85 of the 7th District. The property consists of 18,000 square feet, and the request is to reduce the front yard setback requirement from 40 feet to 31 feet to allow for a single-family dwelling. This property is located in Commission District 3 and was presented by Mrs. Yuritsa Nieves, Planner 2.
Do I have a motion?
Yes, I make a motion to approve the variance as recommended by staff due to the physical conditions of this property, which makes the variance for the setback a reasonable request.
Do I have a second? Thank you, Mr. Barr. All in favor? Motion carries. Please call the next case.
Case number RZ-19-03, JWA Ventures 2 LLC of Montgomery, Alabama, requests a rezoning from RA Residential Agricultural and C1 Neighborhood Commercial to MU Mixed Use for property located at 3451 Highway 81 East and land lot 145 of the 8th District. The property consists of 103.56 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a commercial and single-family residential development. This property is located in Commission District 3 and will be presented by Mr. Stacy Jordan Rootsil, Chief Planner.
Good evening, Chair, board members. The case before you tonight, the subject property is located along Highway 81 East at the corner of 81 and North Ola Road, as indicated in your exhibit books and also on the overhead. The tax map shows that the subject property, which is comprised of 103.5 acres, stretches all the way along Highway 81 from North Ola Road all the way over to the light at Keys Ferry. The zoning map shows the subject property highlighted in green. The areas that are shaded in white indicate areas that are zoned RA, which is residential agricultural, and the applicant's request is to rezone from RA residential agricultural to MU mixed use. The red areas indicate properties that are already zoned commercial in this area. Our future land use map shows the subject property, again highlighted in green, in this lavender or pink shade, which indicates that the land use designation that's planned, that's part of our policy guide, is for mixed use. The applicant's request is for a mixture of commercial and single-family residential. So you'll notice that on the corner of Highway 81 and North Ola Road, there will be a commercial shopping center that's proposed to be anchored by a grocery store with retail shops and certain commercial outparcels along Highway 81. Toward the back of the subject property, the applicant is proposing a single-family residential subdivision. So again, on the corner, a shopping center anchored by a grocery store with commercial outparcels. The single-family residential portion of the applicant's request would be divided into areas proposed to meet the development standards of R2 on septic for 12 lots, but then the balance of the lots would be proposed to meet the development standards for R2S, which is single family on sewer. So the 12 lots in the very back of the proposed development would be proposed for septic, and the reason for this is because this is on the other side of a ridge line and would not be able to be served by gravity sewer line. The staff has taken note of the applicant's request We've evaluated the applicant's request according to our criteria points. We have noted that the future land use map calls for mixed use, which allows for a density of up to 16 dwelling units per acre. We've taken note of the fact that the applicant has indicated that the residential portion of the subject property would be about 1.5 dwelling units per acre. We've noted the comments that have been made from our Henry County Department of Transportation, and we recommend approval with the 5 conditions in your exhibit books. And I'd be pleased to answer any questions.
Any questions for staff? Mr. Risher.
In terms of road access, I think the staff report says that Highway 81 East is a major arterial, but do you have the functional classification for North Ola Road?
Yes, the functional classification for North Ola Road is a minor arterial.
Please refrain from any outbursts. Thank you. Any other questions for staff? If not, we'll ask the applicant to come forward, please.
Members of the Zoning Advisory Board, my name is Andy Welch. I represent JWA Ventures 2 LLC in this rezoning request. Staff has gone through the request thoroughly. I'll just point out that in looking at the staff report, the requested rezoning complies with all 9 criteria points that you use to evaluate a rezoning request. Furthermore, the staff has pointed out that the rezoning that we're asking for is a mixed-use development. There is a grocery store anchor that is planned for the commercial, the corner at North Ola Road and 81 Highway. Along with that, there will be road improvements that are going to be needed to 81 Highway and North Ola Road to accommodate that commercial development. We are aware of that, and we are making plans for that should it be approved ultimately. In addition, we've acknowledged that there are multiple subdivisions throughout the North Ola Road community, many of which are designated for a density of 1.5 to 2 units per acre. This development would be in line with that at 1.5 units per acre. Mind you, it would actually be a 1.26 under your former zoning ordinance provisions, but under your new zoning ordinance provisions, you do not allow for the right-of-way, stormwater detention facilities, or other utility facilities to be counted towards your density. So in that context, the units would be calculated at 1.5 units per acre. It's important to note that the mixed-use development would allow and contemplates a variety of uses in terms of commercial, industrial, residential uses. That would include the ability to put in apartments, townhomes, and other high-density developments. This request does not do that, obviously. It's a single-family detached home dwelling at a 1 unit per half acre, except for the 12 units at the back of the property that Mr. Rudisil has just pointed out to you. In that context, this is highly compliant with the other subdivisions that have been approved by the Board of Commissioners over time. It's consistent with that development, and to ensure for the purposes of the community that you're rezoning, if you decide to grant the rezoning and move it forward to the Board of Commissioners, and should they decide to grant the rezoning, this request has a cap on the number of units that can be built in it. The staff has placed in the conditions, and you'll see that on page 5 of your report. You'll see the conditions are placed there by staff, and those conditions are outlined, state affirmatively that this is condition number 4, the development shall not exceed 104 dwelling units, which is what we've shown on our layout. And so in that context, you'll be capped at that number going forward with the development of the property, leaving the density at 1.5 as opposed to getting anywhere near the 16 units that would otherwise be allowed by the mixed-use development designation under the future land use map. With that request, we would ask for your favorable consideration of the project. We think it'll be very helpful for the community. We think it'll be beneficial in terms of the commercial node there. As you're already aware, and you saw with the zoning map, there are numerous parcels that are already designated for commercial use at the North Ola Road intersection, as well as moving out to Keys Ferry and beyond. And this property, as was pointed out by Mr. Rudisil, goes all the way to the Keys Ferry light, and you'll see that it extends there, and it would utilize the entire tract. I'd be happy to take any questions from members of the ZAB.
Mr. Barr?
Mr. West, could you elaborate on what is going to be on 81? I can't read it, the commercial areas
Yes.
there. Could you elaborate
let me give it.
what's going to go down 81 there?
So this allows for a little closer view of the commercial area there, the commercial parcel. That's a, as Mr. Russo pointed out, but this one shows a little bit better. This is a grocery store anchor here with the shops on either side of it, flanking on either side of it. And then these would be out parcels for future development.
What do you anticipate going in these areas? Like the OP2, OP1, 3?
It could be any use. I don't have a planned use for it, nor does the landowner at present. We do know that we do intend to place a grocery store there.
Mr. Risher?
On the residential portion of the development, I understand that there will be, 12 single-family lots that will be on septic systems and county water. And if I recall correctly, under the R2, if it's approved, those lots would have to be at least 30,000 square feet. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And then the lots that are on the sewer system would have to be under the R2S. That would be 22,000 square feet. Is that right?
That is correct. That's
yes,
correct.
sir. Mr. Rusher, and if I could just elaborate for the record, the development standards for R2S is exactly as you described, a minimum of 22,000 square feet. I believe that's what the applicant has illustrated on the site plan. However, the development standards for mixed use would allow for lots as small as 10 to 890, which the applicant has not chosen to take advantage of.
Right. It could be a lot more dense, but they're not asking for that, and
Yes.
so that's all that we're going to consider, nothing more dense than what's proposed by the application.
Yes, sir.
I have one more question. You talked about making improvements to the road, North Ola and 81.
Yes.
What is that other than a turning lane? Or I'm looking at what you have on the overhead.
No, it's there'll be a left-hand turn lane coming up this way for eastbound traffic. The existing through lane is there. You'll have an existing through lane coming through, and then a turn lane that goes all the way through and turns into North Ola Road. The staff has asked us to preserve right-of-way on the property. One of the conditions of zoning is to preserve right-of-way so that the roadway can be expanded in the future. You'll see turning movements up here for the right-in, right-out only entrance on this part here, which will be a joint access entrance with the commercial properties and these out parcels. So you have all of that traffic will be able to move either in a left-hand turn lane movement or through lanes, so it won't be bottled up. Also, you'll see here we're going to have additional deceleration lanes coming off of North Ola Road so that traffic can move again through North Ola Road, moving in its northbound direction, while those that wish to go to the commercial establishment can take the right-hand turn lane.
Okay, so what we're looking at is the proposed plan.
Yes, you are.
Right, okay,
You are seeing it.
thank you.
What are your proposed plans for sidewalks in the residential areas?
Subdivisions are required to have sidewalks throughout the subdivision, so we would meet those minimum standards for the sidewalks that are already required by your zoning ordinance and your subdivision ordinance.
And Madam Chair, I'd just like to add that this location is within our Highway Corridor Overlay District, and there are additional supplemental standards for mixed-use developments as well.
Thank you. Any other questions for applicant? for staff? Not, thank you. You may be seated, thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, we will allow 10 minutes for anyone who would like to speak in favor of this case. 10 minutes for anyone who would like to speak in favor. None. 10 minutes for anyone, hold on a moment, please. 10 minutes for anyone who would like to speak in opposition. And a word of caution, outbursts or applause will not be tolerated from this point forward. State your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Edwin Lawrence.
You have 10 minutes.
I'll only need a minute of your time, ma'am. My name is Edwin Lawrence. I live at 401 Sherrill Tapestry Park. I got a big concern about these proposals. You're looking at bringing in commercial entities into our neighborhood, plus residentials. And if you looked at the crime rate, we have a gas station that has been robbed many a times. We have a Dollar General that has been robbed many a times, and you're just opening up another can of worms. And another thing, I thank the police officers here for their support, but they're already undermanned. And to bring this into our neighborhood is just, please, take a look. They got an old saying, pay paradise, put up a parking lot. And that's exactly what we're doing to McDonough. We're bringing Jonesboro Road to McDonough. Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead. Say your name and
I'm
your
going to
address.
restate, please. No applause or outbursts will be tolerated from this point forward. Thank you.
Say your name and your address, please. Go ahead. I'm Kelly Alderfer, and this is Sophia Alderfer. We live at 480 Turner Road, McDonough, 30252. Sophia's a little nervous, so I'm going to read what she wrote. It says, "Hi, my name is Sophia, and I have a concern. I do not want a grocery store next to our school for many reasons. First, I do not want a grocery store because I don't want someone bad coming to the school and hurting my friends. Also, to be honest, I really, really love my school, and she should read it because I'm going to cry. And I don't want anyone getting hurt. Whew. The second reason is that I don't want people from the grocery store to come to the school while kids are playing on the playground and spying on the kids." Meanwhile, my 8-year-old wrote this. "The third reason is that if you make a grocery store, it will have to be big and take away our green space. The fourth reason is that if you do make a grocery store, do you mind to make it a healthy one like Trader Joe's?" Now, the last one is not a complaint. What I like about this project is that if you do make a grocery store, it'd be close to my house. But please, what we haven't seen on any of these lands is the proximity to the schools. And you have an elementary school backed directly up with no barrier, directly backed up to right behind that detention pond. Now, their Tapestry Park has sidewalks that they meet the minimum standards, which our representative, Mr. Welch, said. Now, what will happen is they will build the minimum standards and not build sidewalks around that connects the school, so the school to the grocery store. And in addition, you have 100 acres of green space. I understand that the community plan, the advanced plan was to have mixed use, but what you're not taking this does not take into consideration the integrity of the community, and that you're taking away 100 acres of green space and leaving 10. That is such a small minimum, and I understand that it hits the minimum requirement in code, but what we're asking is for some kind of mitigation for this community. You're next to 3 schools, the closest being an elementary school. So you're inviting a whole nother phase. I will let other people speak, but thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Heidi Jacobson, 205 Abigail Court, McDonough, Georgia. All right.
You can adjust that microphone.
Oh, sure.
Okay. There you go.
All right. Yeah, similar concerns, just that the land that's there right now, it's a beautiful, beautiful stretch of land. It's green. Every day we come home to our homes in the area. We drive past that 100 acres, and we've seen it for years. There's a barn on it. There's horses. There's people riding horses around there. It's a gorgeous place. I don't know if we can stop development. Maybe we don't want to stop development, but we do want to protect the integrity of the land and have more green space, maybe not stores and concrete and bricks and glass so close to the road, maybe set back a little further so that we can have more green in front. If it has to happen, it's going to happen. And also the services that are going to be provided in the in the stores. Are we going to have a coffee shop? Are we going to have a restaurant? Are we going to have a hardware store? Are we going to have nail salons? Or what's going to be in there? And the grocery store itself, it has to be a higher end, like a Whole Foods or a Publix or a Integrity quality grocery store to attract, I don't know, it just has to be a good quality grocery store, that's all I can say. And so we want to increase our property values. We don't want to decrease them. We want to turn that beautiful stretch of land into something that we can all be proud of.
Thank you.
Good evening, Dan Newcomb, 331 Dillon Way, McDonough or Ola. I moved out here long ago to get away from commercialism. I don't mind the residential part. Traffic is what it is. Eventually they'll fix 81 after I'm dead. But to add all this commercialism out there is ridiculous. We don't need any more Mexican, Waffle Houses, Dollar Generals, dollar stores, gas stations, or anything. But I guess the fact that this plan appeared on this company's website not long before or after the flume was released, and how quickly got these plans out, we know who's being bought or what's being taken care of. We know this has been bought and paid for. So at least if you're going to spoil Ola, spoil it decently. Thank you.
Kurt Jackson, 125 Winshows Way. My main concern is safety, safety, safety. Schools. Our schools are behind there. Unfortunately, no matter how you look at it, crime follows commercialism. You turn around and you put those things up there, you're going to put every single child at risk. Every child at risk at the school system. Our cops, unfortunately, underpaid, don't have enough of them out there to protect us a lot of times, but they do the best job they can. Unfortunately, this we are not prepared for out there. We don't need this. Actually, we don't even need the extra homes right now. We don't need any more approval. Our school is overpopulated. Sure, we're having a small expansion, but we're still overpopulated. There are no plans for the schools, for the extra homes that are going to be put in there. There is nothing in the works to meet the desire for what's going to happen. 2, traffic. You're going to add this commercialism. You've got school there. It's just not going to work. We're not prepared for this yet. This is still another 5 or 10 years out. We don't need this now. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. And I appreciate the fact that they're going over there and above to turn around and put more homes in there than what they can. I mean, put less homes in there than what they can. I apologize for that. But we do not need commercialism near our schools. Thank you.
You're at the 7-minute mark. State your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Amanda Myers, 25 Pine Tree Drive. As an educator, I'd like to voice my opposition to this. There's been no specification as to the grocery store going in or the sale of alcoholic beverages within the proximity of those grocery stores. I'd also like to voice to the president that there has been crime that has followed all the other development, and I would like to note the number of people here today to speak into opposition to this board. As citizens, we have a concern that schools already overpopulated. The impact fees have not been specified whether they will go towards that school. There is already enormous class sizes in that school. You cannot expect to maintain the quality of education for the current students of this county and of the Ola area without making a plan for the schools.
Thank you.
Good evening, Shelley Dobbs, 464 South Ola Road. Moved out here 16 years ago. Ola was a nice, quiet, well-maintained, safe neighborhood. It now takes me 45 minutes to go from my house to the square. 81 is overcrowded. The infrastructure is not keeping up with the growth. I understand this is coming, but I think it needs to be coming a little bit further down the road where our infrastructure can catch up to the massive amount of growth that we've had. I live right over here at South Ola, and for years they've proposed a realignment of South Ola with North Ola. My street was probably considered a minor artery, but is now a major thoroughfare because of the school development behind here. And if this goes into effect, I'm going to be living on an expressway. It used to be a nice, quiet back road. I've got no storm drains. Flooding is a concern because of all of the build out there. And I think if y'all would just take a moment, listen to your audience, listen to your constituents. We know this is coming, but it needs to be planned a little further in advance and more thought with the surroundings. Thank you.
You have 1 minute, please.
Christine Bobo, 446 Kimberly Court. You already know my stance as far as drainage, flooding. She just said it right there. That whole property sits at an 800-foot elevation, runs downhill from there. Elementary school's right behind it. We've got detention ponds, here again, detention pond floods. Not only that, 81 is due to be widened, what, in 6 years? 6 years. We're adding 104 homes now, Tapestry down the road. We've technically added over 900 homes that will be added in that area within a year or two, which is roughly 1,228 students, which is going to cause us to add trailers to the school. That's another 40 trailers, and let's see, it's $25,000 per trailer. Let you multiply that. We don't have the finances, and again, the infrastructure to take care of all this stuff. It's so congested out there. How is people going to make a left turn to get into the school, to get out of the school, to get into these commercial properties? Not only that, you're just spot zoning in certain areas to turn it into commercialism. There's a few corners here and a few corners there. It's not straight down 81. It's just one corner here, one corner here, one corner there, where all of a sudden you're zoning it for commercial. It's in the red zone now. And then once you open that up, you've got another 100 acres across the street, 200 more acres, and there's wetlands on the other side of 81. If you go down South Ola, right back in there, there are some wetlands. They're going to flood when you start adding all these parking lots and houses again. Just saying, I hope you got money to take care of all the flooding in a few years.
Thank you. We've exhausted our time. Sir, I'm sorry, we've exhausted our time. Thank you. Any additional questions for applicant or staff? Mr. Risher.
For the applicant, if Mr. Welch would come forward.
Yes, sir.
Yes, there was a question about who owns the property. Could you tell us, was this some kind of a trust from a family that, that owned that property for many, many years? Or?
It is, yes, sir. It has been owned in a trust as the old family property that's been held in trust for many years. And as to the property's location to the school, there's a 1,200-foot separation between the location of the proposed grocery store and the elementary school, the old elementary school, on North Ola Road.
I think that same property gave, I'm sorry, that same owners gave the land for the Ola Park.
That's correct.
As well as the school itself, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
I can't speak to that.
Quiet, please.
And then a question was asked about the sidewalks, and I did not present that to you clearly, but the statement was made by staff, and I think that the public may not be aware. But the overlay that you have for your main corridors, that requires a 10-foot wide multi-use path. And I'm sure you're very well familiar with that. So that would require the multi-use path to run along the frontage of 81 Highway, as well as on North Ola Road to the extent of the property. So in fact, as this is being developed out of the commercial node, there is a 10-foot wide multi-use path at both sides. So we are providing pedestrian-friendly corridors for access to the commercial and back to the residential areas. And if you think about it, when we're talking about development, we hear, no, we don't want the commercial for all these reasons. Then the alternative is to develop more residential. And so in residential sense, then you add more students to the school system than you are by adding commercial development that adds to your tax base. And that commercial development adds to the tax base. It also helps out with the development and building of schools and the staffing and the O&M of schools. So in a mixed-use concept, what you're doing is you're accounting for the needs of those that would live close by, be able to walk to enjoy the commercial development there, the grocery store in particular, and be in close proximity to that. That provides a high benefit to those that live around there, and it reduces on trip traffic that you would see. So in a context of wanting to reduce traffic and keep the number of students that may be coming to the school system lower, this plan is that plan. It is of low density in terms of residential development, and it has a commercial node that adds to the tax base as well as provides convenience and doesn't add children to the school system. So in actuality, the plan is actually a very good fit consistent with your future land use map.
I'd also like to ask staff is about how many community hearings did we have in the development of the new land use plan?
It was nearly 2 years, Dante, do you recall?
2 years worth, Mr. Risher.
Okay,
We lost
thank
count after about maybe 12 or 13.
I have a question for Stacy. I don't have my full set of notes. Could you just go over the impact statement from Henry County Schools in terms of additional students
Yes.
estimated?
So we're referencing page 5 of the staff report that's in your exhibit books. It says correspondence received from the Henry County Board of Education dated February 5th states that the schools serving the proposed development are Ola Elementary, Ola Middle, and Ola High. The proposed development will generate an estimated 208 students for the schools collectively. And that's based upon the 104 dwelling units proposed. At the time, there are no modular classrooms at Ola Elementary. Ola Middle has 10, Ola High has 4. According to the correspondence, the additional students would result in a need for 8 additional classrooms collectively. The projected capital improvement costs are $25,000 per modular classroom and $300,000 per permanent classroom.
Thank you. Any other questions for applicant or staff? All right. If not, we'll call the case.
Case number RZ-19-03, JWA Ventures 2 LLC of Montgomery, Alabama, request a rezoning from RA Residential Agricultural and C1 Neighborhood Commercial to MU Mixed Use for property located at 3451 Highway 81 East and land lot 145 of the 8th District. The property consists of 103.56 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a commercial and single-family residential development. This property is located in Commission District 3 and was presented by Mr. Stacy Jordan Rudisill, Chief Planner.
Do I have a motion, please?
Yes, I make a motion for approval of the request with the permitted uses in C2 district as part of the mixed-use overlay plan. That the single-family lots will be R2S, 22,000 square feet, except for the 12 lots that are on individual septic tanks, which will be 30,000 square feet. There shall be entrances located such that the minimum intersection site distance and the minimum spacing requirements are met per the road's posted speed limit, and there shall be a deceleration lane and acceleration taper designed and constructed by Georgia Department of Transportation and Henry County Department of Transportation standards. The owner and developer shall preserve property along Highway 81 for future right-of-way width of 60 feet from the center along the road's frontage. That the development shall be constructed in substantial compliance with land use designations of the site plan, which was shown tonight. The development shall not exceed 104 units, and I would add that they be 2,400 square feet heated floor area, and that all disturbed areas of residential lots shall be sodded. And that is the motion.
All right, I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
This meeting is concluded. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Meeting is adjourned.